Shalom, y'all. All praises. Y'all can't tell, but it's hundreds of people in the stands. All praises. In the congregation. All praises. For those in the Bahamas, Most High in Christ bless. Glad that y'all on here. Dominica.
Yep.
That's both of them?
Yep.
Okay, all praises. All praise. Glad to see y'all. Glad to be able to go through the scriptures. Let me see. Manoah, do you understand the difference in the two Gentiles that are used in the Bible?
Yes, sir. One Gentile group is talking about heathens, other nations like Egyptians, Edomites. The other Gentiles talking about Israelites that were converted into Gentiles by worshiping other gods.
Correct. Hold on, what'd you say?
Israelites converted into Gentiles.
Gotcha. Okay, gotcha. Okay, good. Absolutely correct. So now we're going to go through the history, because a lot of people understand that and we're able to quote precepts, but to actually go into the Bible and understand the context is something different. When you understand the context of our history and how we became Gentiles, when you go into the New Testament and when you're seeing it, it makes it a lot easier for you to understand and grasp that understanding of Israelites being called Gentiles, heathens, strangers, so on and so forth. Deacon Athan did a wonderful class on this years ago, Elder Athan, years ago. So we ain't going to be able to go through all of it tonight. Me and Cap, we're going to start doing these Thursday night classes. We want to keep it to an hour. We're going to keep it to an hour. We're going to get it in, get it out. We'll take questions as we go. So as we're going, if you have any concerns, we're going too fast, let us know, and we'll answer those questions. We're not here just to throw a million precepts at you. So make sure y'all follow along. So let's get started. Bring up the definition of the word Gentile. Put it on the screen so everybody can see. Who reading for me? Anthony?
Yes, sir.
All right, read that for me. This is from the Zondervan Bible Dictionary.
Gentiles, nation, people. Usually it means a non-Israelite people.
Read that part again with some emphasis.
Yes, sir. Gentiles, usually.
Usually. This is the key part y'all have to understand when you're reading the Bible. Definitions change. I forgot what Bishop went over. He went over the noise. Remember he went over, I think it was noise. Oh, waters. He went over the definition of the word waters a few weeks ago. And he proved waters in some instances, it means understanding. In other instances, it's talking about the people. And in another instance, it's talking about literal water. So with Gentiles, read it again. Put it back on the screen, Gentile.
Usually it means a non-Israelite people.
Usually it means a non-Israelite people. So if usually it means that, what does it also mean? Who can tell me? It also means sometimes it's talking about Israelites. 100% correct. 100% correct. So that understanding is not known to everybody. Go to Colossians chapter 1 and verse 26. And Cap, anytime you got something, any points, bring it out.
The book of Colossians, chapter 1, verse 26.
Mm-hmm.
Even the mystery which hath been hid from ages.
Even the what?
Even the mystery which hath been hid from ages.
Even the mystery that have been hid for ages. Read.
And from generations.
And from generations. Read.
But now is made manifest to his saints.
So this understanding of the Israelites becoming Gentiles is a mystery to a lot of people. This understanding, I remember the first time I watched that video with Elder Thon going through it, and I was mind blown. And all the precepts made perfect sense. I was like, dang, this is crazy. And then you get on Clubhouse and you realize 99% of the world don't understand this. They lost in the sauce. Go ahead, Cap.
No, you're absolutely right, because I'll just go back to this past Sabbath. When you were teaching, brother said he's a Gentile.
Right.
What Gentile nation are you from? I don't know.
Yep.
So it is a mystery.
It is a mystery. 100% correct. Read verse 27.
Verse 27. To whom God would make known what is the riches of the glory of this mystery among the Gentiles,
Read.
which is Christ in you, the hope of glory.
So, once they get the understanding of Christ, then they can get the glory that comes with Christ. So, go to Matthew 13 and verse 10. Matthew chapter 13, verse 10 and 11.
Matthew chapter 13, verse 10. And the disciples came and said unto him, Why speakest thou unto them in parables? He answered and said unto them, Because it is given unto you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven.
So understand, the understanding that we have here at I.U.I.C. that the bishops, the deacons are bringing out, these are the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven. A lot of people do not have this understanding of the Bible. Read it again.
He answered and said unto them, Because it is given
Matter of fact, start at verse 10. I'm sorry.
Verse 10. And the disciples came and said unto him, Why speakest thou unto them in parables?
Why do you speak to them in parables? Read.
He answered and said unto them, Because it is given unto you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven. But to them it is not given.
So everybody ain't going to have this understanding. So when you go home tonight, you try to tell your grandma, hey, the Gentiles are Israelites. She ain't going to get it. Try to tell your mama, your auntie, your pawpaw, they ain't going to understand it. This understanding ain't for everyone. And the faster you understand that, the better you'll know how to navigate in this world. Because with this understanding, give me that, with much wisdom is much grief. Ecclesiastes, officers. With much wisdom is much grief. It's Ecclesiastes. You know what I'm talking about?
Chapter 1.
Yeah, let's see if that's it.
Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verse 13. And I gave my heart to seek and search out by wisdom concerning all things that are done under heaven. This sore travail hath God given to the sons of man to be exercised therewith. I have seen all the works that are done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity and vexation of spirit.
1 and 18.
Verse 18.
Uh-huh.
For in much wisdom
in much wisdom, read.
is much grief.
In much wisdom is much grief. What does he mean by that? The more understanding you have, the more you realize how bad we have fallen as a people. I give you understanding. When you first come into the truth, you just understand everything you good. You think our people at a bad estate. But imagine you really understanding how our people were rolling. We talked about this before. Passover this year, we thought it was great, right? 5,000 people, we got lamb and whatnot. When you read about Solomon and his court and David and his courts, they had thousands of people that he fed daily. That was just the people that worked the courts. That wasn't during the Passover. That was on a daily basis. We had that type of things. When you read about the Jerusalem and the temple and how it was set up and overlaid with gold, and you read about how Queen of Sheba came miles away to come get the wisdom, and then you see our people today. That with much wisdom is much grief, because you're not truly able to comprehend how great we are as a people at one point. And the more you understand that, the more it's vexing that you're in this state as a mortal man. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to give an example of that. If we can go to 2nd Ezra 3, one of our forefathers, and I want to start at verse 28.
The book of 2nd Ezra, chapter 3, verse 28.
So this is what Ezra, you know what? Read verse 1 and 2, and then let's jump down, just so we can get the understanding.
2nd Ezra, chapter 3, verse 1. In the 30th year after the ruin of the city, I was in Babylon, and lay troubled upon my bed.
And lay troubled upon my bed. Go ahead.
And my thoughts came up over my heart, for I saw the desolation of Zion.
That's us. So as we going into who the real Gentiles are, at this time, we knew who we were, okay? He saw the desolation of Zion. That's Israel. Go ahead.
And the wealth of them that dwelt at Babylon.
And the wealth of the real Gentile nations. Let's jump down to 28.
Verse 28. Are their deeds then any better that inhabit Babylon, that they should therefore have the dominion over Sion?
So when we teach our people out on the streets, nothing has changed from the time that Ezra wrote this till today. You still see that our oppressors, the heathen nations, they dwell in wealth. You have a handful of us that have wealth, but I remember when it was Chris Rock did in his stand-up, he said his neighbor is a regular Edomite, a regular white man. That's a dentist. You know, he's a comedian making millions of dollars. His neighbor has a regular Edomite job.
He's one of the greatest comedians of all time. And he lives next to a regular dentist.
A regular dentist. They flow in wealth. There's nothing that has changed. Read on.
For when I came thither and had seen impieties without number, then my soul saw many evildoers in this 30th year, so that my heart failed me. For I have seen how thou sufferest them sinning.
So he's saying, I see, Lord, how you allow the heathen to sin. Go ahead.
And has spared wicked doers, and has destroyed thy people, and has preserved thine enemies.
Go ahead.
And has not signified it. I do not remember how this way may be left. Are they then of Babylon better than they of Zion?
So now that's the question. That's showing you, too, that you have what? You have the Israelites, and then you have the other nations, the Gentiles, the heathens. Read this last verse, 32.
Or is there any other people that knoweth thee beside Israel?
That's the question. Is there any other nation that the Lord is dealing with besides the Israelites? That's why as we go through the class, you'll see that you have natural-born Gentiles, and then you have Gentiles that have sought the way of our oppressors, that are living, they're Israelites that are living as Gentiles. Go ahead and finish that out.
Or what generation had so believed thy covenants as Jacob?
So we can clearly say that because the scriptures show us that the commandments were only given to Jacob, the Israelites.
Oh, praises. So from there, let's go to Isaiah 28 and 13. Because he said, it was given unto us to know the mysteries of heaven. That was given to the chosen disciples of Christ, which we are today. Isaiah 28 and 13.
Isaiah chapter 28, verse 13.
Uh-huh.
But the word of the Lord was unto them.
But the word of the Lord was unto them. Now it's talking about those on the outside. Read.
Precept upon precept.
Precept upon precept.
Precept upon precept.
Precept upon precept.
Line upon line.
Uh-huh.
Line upon line.
Uh-huh.
Here a little and there a little.
Read.
That they might go and fall backwards.
So there's people that have understanding. They can quote scriptures too. But they fall backward. Read.
And be broken.
And be broken. Read.
And snared.
Uh-huh.
And taken.
And taken. That's the 98% of Christians that's teaching the Bible today, that don't have the understanding, that the precepts don't match up with. They are broken and snared in white man Christianity. That's why they can't go and teach this Bible on the street corners all across the world, because they will be confounded day in and day out by anybody that just read the Bible. Because when you read, the kingdom's for Israel. So these Gentiles that Christ came for could not be of the other nations. It don't add up. It don't add up. So let's get into it. Who are the real Gentiles? The soldier stated it early. Now we're going to bracket up with scriptures. Let's go to 1 Ezra chapter 8 and verse 69. 1 Ezra chapter 8 and verse 69. Let's deal with the real Gentiles.
First Ezra chapter 8, verse 69. The nation of Israel, the princes, the priests and Levites, have not put away from them the strange people.
The what?
The strange people of the land. Nor the pollutions of the Gentiles.
Nor the pollutions of the Gentiles. Understand, the Gentiles always pollute us as a people, letting us know what? We're pure when we're doing our own thing. When we are away from the Gentiles, we're away from the strangers, we are in a high level or in state as a people. Read.
Nor the pollutions of the Gentiles, to wit, of the Canaanites.
The Canaanites are Gentiles.
Hittites.
The Hittites are Gentiles.
Pharisees,
The Pharisees are Gentiles.
Jebusites,
Jebusites are Gentiles.
and the Moabites,
Moabites are Gentiles.
Egyptians,
Egyptians are Gentiles.
and Edomites.
And the Edomites are Gentiles. So these are some of the Gentile nations. But anybody outside of the nation of Israel, those are your natural born Gentiles, as Cap brought out earlier. Because remember, there's two sets of people on the face of the earth. You got the daughters of men, then you got the sons of God. That line of the sons of God goes with the nation of Israel. The daughters of men are going with all those other nations. Those two seeds that we read about in Genesis. Everybody following so far? All right. From there, let's go to Genesis 10 and verse 5. Genesis chapter 10 and verse 5.
Genesis chapter 10.
So right now we're establishing who the natural Gentiles are, meaning the nations outside of the nation of Israel. Read that.
Genesis chapter 10, verse 5. By these were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their lands, every one after his tongue, after their families, in their nations.
In their nations. A family is a nation. Genesis means the beginning. All nations come from families. Let's prove that real quick. Go to that Joel. You only have I known?
Amos.
Yep, Amos. Let's prove. It's a family thing. Because a lot of times we say that when people say, so only the Israelites, yes, it's a family thing. You don't invite everybody to your family reunion. Do y'all invite everybody to the Jenkins family reunion? You got to be a Jenkins. All right? You don't invite the Bryants to the Jenkins family reunion. That's when Christ come, he coming back for the Israelites. He ain't inviting the Edomites. He ain't inviting the Jebusites. Just think about it like that. Everybody ain't invited to the cookout. Right. Read that.
The book of Amos, chapter 3, verse 1.
Hear
this word that the Lord has spoken against you, O children of Israel.
O children of Israel. Read.
Against the whole family.
Against the what?
Against the whole family.
Against the whole family. That's what we trying to harp on our people. That's why when they say it's a religion, you the black Hebrew Israelite. No, this is our family. When they tell you you're not the true people, they're trying to disconnect you from your true family, your true lineage, your true culture. And they're allowing you to be disconnected from who you truly are. And like we asked the brother the other day, when they tell you you're not the Israelite, they got to tell you, okay, well, what family do I come from?
Exactly.
And they can't provide that for you. So you better go with what you know, or you're going to be out here lost in the sauce.
Hey, Cap, let's give one more to back that up. Joel 2:27.
The book of Joel, chapter 2, verse 27. And ye shall know that I am in the midst of Israel.
I'm in the midst of who?
That I am in the midst of Israel. And that I am the Lord your God and none else. And my people shall never be ashamed.
And you know, it says, my people shall never be ashamed. We should never be ashamed that our God is the only true living God. Okay, you should never be ashamed that you are the children of Israel. All right?
All right.
Go back to 10.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Go back to Genesis 10.
Genesis chapter 10, verse 6. And the sons of Ham, Cush, and Mizraim, and Put, and Canaan. And the sons of Cush, Seba, and Havilah, and Sabta.
Hold on, my bad. Go back to Genesis 10 and 5.
Verse 5. By these were the isles of the Gentiles.
The isles of the Gentiles were what?
Divided.
Divided, read.
In their lands.
In their land. So God split up all the nations. And he put the Gentiles in one place. Let's see who they were. Read.
Every one after his tongue, after their families, in their nations.
In their nations. Read.
And the sons of Ham.
The sons of Ham.
Cush.
Cush.
And Mizraim.
Mizraim.
And Put. And Canaan.
So, you keep reading down. Those are all the other nations of what? Gentiles. Those were the Gentiles. So, go to Exodus 11 and 7. Exodus 11 and 7. Because it says the sons of Ham, Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan.
Exodus chapter 11, verse 7.
Mm-hmm.
But against any of the children of Israel
Uh-huh.
shall not a dog move his tongue.
Against any of the children of Israel shall not a dog move his tongue against us. Read.
Against man or beast,
Uh-huh.
that ye may know how that the Lord doth put a difference.
The Lord does what?
Put a difference
Uh-huh.
between the Egyptians
Which are Hamites. Read.
and Israel.
And Israel. Why did he put a difference? Because they come from two different families and lineages. God gave one family a special bloodline, but he said to these other people, they are normal people. He said they are nothing. Now,
The scriptures say, where there is no vision, the people perish.
Shalom, Israel. This is Bishop Nathaniel. I want you to know that you can view all our Sabbath classes live on I.U.I.C. TV. That's right, I said on I.U.I.C. TV.
Do you know history?
I'm going to show you and prove to you that the Israelites are black, were always black.
Dance for time, just move up your body. Don't get loose and groove on the body. Bruise, wine.
Put on the armor, the procedure complete. Me nah go back, nah retreat. All traitors, every Jezebel must get delete. Me no sleep on a demon, me keep a full clip. Conspire me downfall, cause them want to me slip. Stay close to the real ones, we seal off and legit. Cause I gotta use them to keep your soul from the pit. This a war life, I swear the deal.
so recap real quick. So far we went over who the real Gentiles were. All right, the real Gentiles, which is any nation outside the nation of Israel. And I was given, we're going to harp on the Hamites. All right, real quick. Exodus 11:7. Read that again.
The book of Exodus chapter 11, verse 7.
Uh-huh.
But against any of the children of Israel shall not a dog move his tongue.
Mm-hmm.
Against man or beast, that ye may know how that the Lord doth put a difference between the Egyptians and Israel.
From there, go to Psalms 105 and verse 23. Psalms 105 and 23. So we're dealing with the real Gentile nations.
The book of Psalms chapter 105, verse 23.
Mm-hmm.
Israel also came into Egypt,
Israel came into Egypt. Read.
and Jacob sojourned in the land of Ham.
In the land of what?
In the land of Ham.
So God, not only did he give us lands, he gave the other nations lands. Where did we read about that at? Genesis what? Genesis 10, right? Remember, he said he divided the lands of the Gentiles and their families. So read that verse again.
Israel also came into Egypt,
Mm-hmm.
and Jacob sojourned in the land of Ham.
In the land of Ham. So he gave the other nations land as well. Deuteronomy 32 and verse 7.
Deuteronomy 32 and verse 7.
Uh-huh.
Remember the days of old. Consider the years of many generations.
Uh-huh.
Ask thy father, and he will show thee.
Mm-hmm.
Thy elders, and they will tell thee.
Read.
When the Most High divided to the nations their inheritance.
When the Most High did what?
Divided to the nations their inheritance.
Because Christianity likes to paint the picture that we're all one people under God, is one nation. God always had division. From the beginning, from Genesis 10, he divided the nations. In Genesis 11, when Nimrod came, he split up everybody. Read.
Verse 8. When the Most High divided to the nations their inheritance.
Read.
When he separated the sons of Adam,
Uh-huh.
he set the bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Israel.
He set the bounds according to the number of the children of Israel. Read.
For the Lord's portion is his people.
For the Lord's portion is his people. Read.
Jacob is the lot of his inheritance.
Jacob is the lot of his inheritance. Keep reading.
Verse 10. He found him a desert place,
Uh-huh.
desert land,
He found him in a desert land. Read.
and in the waste howling wilderness.
Uh-huh.
And he led him about. He instructed him. He kept him as the apple of his eye.
He kept us as the apple of his eye. He didn't do that with any other nation. Give me that Zechariah, where he said we was the apple of his eye as well. Zechariah. See if I can find it. Apple of his eye. Found it? I did not. Don't worry, I got you. Zechariah what?
2 and 8.
2 and 8.
All
Yes,
praise.
sir.
Zechariah chapter 2, verse 8.
Mm-hmm.
For thus saith the Lord of hosts, after the glory hath he sent me unto the nations which spoiled you.
Which spoiled you, read.
For he that toucheth you
For he that toucheth you, read.
toucheth the apple of his eye.
You, when nations touch us, it's like touching the apple of his eye. Remember, to Christ, we are Christ what? What are we to Christ? Bishop went over it in class. The nation of Israel. We are what? We are the bride. We are the bride. We the apple of his eye. How many fights have been had over a woman? Look, some of you light-skinned sisters laughing. Yeah, I had a lot of brothers fighting over me. 'Cause I was high yellow. So, that's how God is with us. We are the apple of his eye. So he got a lot of vengeance to take on these other nations. Go ahead, Cap.
Yeah, read that verse again.
Zechariah chapter 2, verse 8. For thus saith the Lord of hosts, after the glory hath he sent me unto the nations which spoiled you. For he that toucheth you,
He that what?
for he that toucheth you,
Uh-huh.
toucheth the apple of his eye.
Now, what nations have touched Israel?
Great question.
Let's get so now. Give me the precept. You said all of them. Give me the precept. Oh,
He
he
ain't got
doesn't
the
have the
precept.
precept.
He ain't got
Okay,
the
who got the precept? Who got the precept? You got the precept, Souls? Come on, where the mic? Where the mic? Where the mic? Can't be sitting down on the job. Up here, up front, up front, up front. I'm sorry, officer.
That's
I
an officer.
forgot. Hey,
He like,
hey,
who the hell you talking
forgive
to?
me, forgive me, forgive me. I forgot.
Shalom, Cap.
Shalom, officer.
Psalms 83.
Okay, Psalms 83. Where I want to go somewhere else and make it a little more plain. All right, go to Second Maccabees. First Maccabees.
Yeah.
First Maccabees 2 and 10.
There you go.
First
There you
Maccabees
go.
2 and 10.
First Maccabees 2 and 10, baby.
The book of First Maccabees, chapter 2, verse 10. What nation
What nation? That's a
hath not-
question. What nation? Go ahead.
what nation hath not had a part in her kingdom,
So, what nation has not come against the Israelites?
Right.
Go ahead.
and gotten of her spoils?
And have taken of her spoils. So that goes back to what we read. Go back to Zechariah. Read that again.
Zechariah 2 and 8. I read it. Zechariah chapter 2 and verse 8. For thus saith the Lord of hosts, after the glory have he sent me unto the nations which spoiled you. For he that toucheth you toucheth the apple of his eye.
So that means the Lord is going after all nations.
Right. Right. All right. From there, let's go.
And you know what, right quick, Cap, you know why that's important? Because if they say we're not the Jews, if we're not the Israelites,
Right.
then that means that the Lord, after all that we've suffered, the Lord is still coming after us.
Right.
So who are we?
Right. Who are we? Who are we? That's a great question. We know, but a lot of people don't. So now we dealt with the real Gentiles. Name some of the real Gentile nations. We just named a few of them. Huh? Mizraim, Edom, Ishmael. Good. Okay, good. Y'all got the gist of them. First Ezra 8 and 69. That's the place you want to go when you want to name a few of them. Now we're going to deal with Israelite Gentiles. Israelite Gentiles. Let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 12 and verse 2. 1 Corinthians 12 and 2.
The book of 1 Corinthians, chapter 12, verse 2.
This is a quick hitter to prove that Israelites were called Gentiles or became Gentiles. Read that.
Ye know that ye were Gentiles,
Ye know that ye were Gentiles. Read.
carried away unto these dumb idols,
Uh-huh.
even as ye were led.
Now, can I say you were a white man? No. No, I can't say that. Japanese. But I can say you were a Gentile because what? You were in a Gentile state of mind. You followed the way and the will of the Gentiles, as it says in 1 Peter. Read it again.
Ye know that ye were Gentiles.
We know that you were Gentiles. Remember, he's talking to the church in Corinth. These are the same people. Go to 1 Corinthians 6 and 9. You were Gentiles when you were following the way of the Gentiles. But when you leave that lifestyle, then you come into who you truly are, which is an Israelite. Just like everybody in this room. We were Gentiles. Read that.
1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 9.
Uh-huh.
Know ye not that the unrighteous shall not inherit the kingdom of God?
Read it quick.
Be not deceived, neither fornicators, nor idolaters, nor adulterers, nor effeminate, nor abusers of themselves with mankind, nor thieves, nor covetous, nor drunkards, nor revilers, nor extortioners shall inherit the kingdom of God.
When you're doing all those things, you would be considered a what? A Gentile, because you're in a Gentile state of mind. Read verse 11. This is the key part.
And such were some of you.
And what?
And such were some of you.
That goes hand in hand with 1 Corinthians 12 and 2. You know that ye were Gentiles when you were carried away with what? Covetousness, drunkenness, reviling, extortion. You were a Gentile. Read verse 11 again.
And such were some of you.
Read.
But ye are washed, but ye are sanctified, but ye are justified in the name of the Lord Jesus, and by the Spirit of our God.
Now, a lot of people will say, well, that means anybody can become an Israelite then. Let me show you what the God says about keeping the commandments. Go back to 2nd Ezra, right where Cap was. 2nd Ezra chapter 3. And let's read verse 33. And read down.
2nd Ezra chapter 3, verse 33. And yet their reward appeareth not, and their labor hath no fruit. For I have gone here and there through the heathen.
I have gone here and there through the heathen.
And I see that they flow in wealth.
They flow in wealth. He talking about the other nations. Read.
And think not upon thy commandments.
They flow in wealth and don't give a damn about the laws of God. Read.
Weigh thou, therefore, our wickedness now in the balance, and theirs also that dwell in the world. And so shall thy name nowhere be found but in Israel.
Read.
Or when was it that they which dwell upon the earth have not sinned in thy sight? Or what people have so kept thy commandments?
What people have kept the commandments of God? Read.
Thou shalt find that Israel by name had kept thy precepts.
The Israelites have kept thy precepts. Read.
But not the heathen.
But what?
But not the heathen.
So, every time when you have a debate of whether or not a person is an Israelite or not, they look a certain way, just see if they keep the commandments or not. That's the key fact. That's what I always say. Let them keep the commandments because it ain't in them to keep the laws of God. They will not do it. That's why you got the so-called Jewish people today. They go by what? The Talmud. They won't keep the commandments of God. They create their own commandments. That's how you know they ain't the people. That's very simple. And that's why we tell people, oh, I don't know who my father is. I don't know this. All right, keep the commandments. That's going to be the deciding factor of if you're a true Israelite or not. You have something?
Yeah, get on 1 Peter 4. Did you have that, Cap?
Go ahead.
1 Peter 4 and start at 2.
1 Peter chapter 4, verse 2. That he no longer should live the rest of his time in the flesh to the lust of men, but to the will of God. For the time past of our life may suffice us to have wrought the will of the Gentiles.
Now let's see what the will of the Gentiles is. This is going back to what Cap just brought out in 1 Corinthians 6. Go ahead.
When we walked in lasciviousness, lust, excess of wine, revelings, banquetings, and abominable idolatries, wherein they think it strange.
Wait a minute. Read that slow.
Wherein they think it strange.
So now when you come into this truth and you start to keep the commandments and you start to refrain from these behaviors that we used to do, what will they do?
Wherein they think it strange.
They will look at you strange. Because what have we been doing here in Babylon for 400 years? We've been keeping the customs of the Gentiles.
Right.
Go ahead.
Wherein they think it strange that ye run not with them to the same excess of riot, speaking evil of you.
Speaking evil of you. You're in a cult. You taking that Bible too seriously. Okay? So this is how you know also the difference between
the Israelites, the Jews, and what? The real natural Gentiles.
All right. From there, let's go to Matthew 4 and 15. Matthew 4 and 15. Now we're dealing with the Israelite Gentiles. Israelite Gentiles. And I think Bishop always used to say this. No, matter of fact, Elder Athon used to say this. If you hear Gentiles in reference to salvation, it's talking about Israelite Gentiles. If you hear Gentiles in reference to destruction, it's talking about the real Gentiles. And that's pretty much how it works out. Go ahead.
The book of Matthew, chapter 4, verse 15. The land of Zabulon and the land of Naphtali, by the way of the sea, beyond Jordan, Galilee of the Gentiles.
Galilee of what?
Of the Gentiles.
Galilee of the Gentiles. But read verse 15 from the top again.
Verse 15. The land of Zabulon.
The land of Zebulun, read.
And the land of Naphtali.
What are those two names of? Those are two of the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. But what are they being called right there? Galilee of what?
Of the Gentiles.
Galilee of the Gentiles. Something happened for them now to be called Gentiles, which we're going to get into. We're going to get into it. So from there, that's another example of Israelite Gentiles. Go to Ephesians chapter 2 and verse 11. Ephesians 2 and 11. Quick hitters.
Ephesians chapter 2, verse 11. Wherefore, remember that ye being in time past.
Y'all see Paul keep saying the same thing? Remember, ye were. So what happened to these people? They what? They changed. They repented. They went back to who they truly are, which is Israelites, just like everybody in here. These letters are so important because it parallels exactly with us today. Read it again.
Wherefore, remember that ye being in time past Gentiles in the flesh.
We were Gentiles in the flesh. Cap just read it in 1 Peter 4. Then we read it in 1 Corinthians 6. Gentiles in the flesh, meaning what? Your actions, the things that you did. Read.
Who are called uncircumcision by that which is called the circumcision, in the flesh made by hand.
In the flesh made by hand. So, let's get the understanding on that. How were they Gentiles in the flesh? How were they Gentiles in the flesh? Who can tell me? We just gave y'all two perfect examples. All right, let me hear you.
They were, shalom, captains.
Shalom, shalom.
They were captains, Gentiles in the flesh due to their actions.
Due to their actions, good. And also, what else? What else? I want one that's common sense. How were they Gentiles in the flesh? And I just said it. Give him the mic. In the flesh. Men.
I don't know.
Okay. Let me hear Soldier Eliezer. Now let me hear Soldier Miles.
Shalom, Caps.
Shalom.
They were uncircumcised.
They were uncircumcised. Remember, the covenant was given to Israel to do what? To be circumcised when? On the 8th day, right? So if you weren't circumcised on the 8th day, you were considered a what? A Gentile in the what? In the flesh. But Northern Kingdom, as they were coming in because they were cut off, which we're going to go into a little later, they weren't circumcised. Just like many of us today. We come in 30, 40 years old. Dang, I didn't know that. Then you got to go get circumcised. But before that, you are a Gentile in the flesh. Go to 1 Maccabees. 1 and 15.
The book of 1 Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 15. And made themselves uncircumcised.
And did what?
And made themselves uncircumcised.
Now we're being repetitive. How did they make themselves uncircumcised? Because how can you make yourself uncircumcised? Can you do that? Let me hear Soldier Mishael. That's Mishael. Yeah, he hiding over there. Mishael, can you make yourself uncircumcised?
Yeah, by not keeping the commandments.
Okay, but can you physically make yourself not uncircumcised?
No, sir.
No. So it's talking about your actions. Your actions. Good. Absolutely correct. Read it again, officer.
And made themselves uncircumcised and forsook the holy covenant.
That's how you do that. That's how you do that. You forsake everything that you learned. Read.
And joined themselves to the heathen.
And did what?
And joined themselves to the heathen.
Uh-huh.
And were sold to do mischief.
And were sold to do mischief. So there were Israelites that became Gentiles during this time period. That's what was happening. First Maccabees 1, verse 44.
First Maccabees chapter 1, verse 44.
Mm-hmm.
For the king had sent letters by messengers unto Jerusalem and the cities of Judah, that they should follow the strange laws of the land, and forbid burnt offerings and sacrifice and drink offerings in the temple, and that they should profane the Sabbaths and festival days.
So, this the same thing they're doing today. They made all these things unlawful because you can't find it nowhere. You can't, when you go to the synagogue, you don't find Sabbath days and feast days. You don't find that. Where you find Christmas, Thanksgiving, Mother's Day, Father's Day. Now you get ostracized if you ain't going to the football game on the Sabbath. They looking at you crazy. If you ain't going to the movies on Friday night, they looking at you crazy. Read.
And pollute the sanctuary and holy people.
Uh-huh.
Set up altars and groves and chapels of idols, and sacrifice swine's flesh and unclean beasts, that they should also leave their children uncircumcised.
His body, his choice. That what?
That they should also leave their children uncircumcised, and make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanness and profanation.
Read.
To the end.
Part. To the end.
That they might forget the law and change all the ordinances.
And change all the ordinances. Read.
And whosoever would not do according to the commandment of the king, he should die.
So this is what happened to us during this time period. From then up until today, we have not remembered the law. Until when you read Malachi 4, that's when we came back to the understanding of who we are. And now today, you're seeing the same thing. Us coming back to the understanding of who we are as a people, keeping the commandments of God. Go ahead.
Hey, I got a question. Who, when they were in the Christian church, was told that they must be circumcised? I don't ever remember the pastor not one time saying that. Okay? Never. So that's telling you one thing clearly. In the churches, we are being taught the ways of who? Gentiles. The Gentiles.
I was actually told in the Christian church that we should not be circumcised. The priest told me we should not be circumcised.
Yep, I bet you did.
This is in the Coptic Orthodox Church.
In the what?
The Coptic Orthodox Church.
Coptic Orthodox Church.
Yeah,
Church of Devil.
He said we do not get circumcised.
Yep. All righty. So, to the end that they might forget the law. Pull up that, who can tell me what was this time period called? What was this time period called? Officer.
This was the time of the Greeks, Greek captivity.
What's this time period called?
Hellenist.
Hellenization. The Hellenization period. Now, this ain't the first time we went as Gentiles, but this is the most famous time. Speaking of that, because we're going to go to the split here in a second. When was besides Egypt, what was the first place we were taken captive? Who can tell me? Soldier Eleazar. What was the first place we were taken captive?
Shalom, Cap.
Shalom.
We were taken into Assyria.
We were taken into Assyria. Hold the mic.
Yes, sir.
So what were we taking next?
From there, we went into the Babylonian captivity.
Next?
That would be the Persian captivity.
Next?
Then we went into the Greek captivity. And then the Roman captivity.
Good. Absolutely correct. And then today is Babylon.
That's right.
All praises. So there's 7 major captivities. He just named them in order. You had Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Persian Medes, Greece, Rome, and America. So those are the big 7. In each of those captivities, you can trace things that America do today all the way back to then. All right? And that is why we keep having to teach the same thing over and over again of us coming back to what? the commandments. That's why their beef with us is that we teach the law. That's why vocab is mad. Why are they teaching the commandments? We tried to burn that law way long ago. Pull up Hellenization period. So, Hellenistic Judaism. Read that.
Hellenistic Judaism.
Scroll down.
Hellenistic Judaism was a form of Judaism in classical antiquity that combined Jewish religious tradition with elements of Greek culture.
So that's what they've always tried to do. Today they call it secular. You got secular, and then I don't even know what they call biblical or whatnot. But they've always tried, leave it up on the screen. They've always tried to mix the two. All right, read.
That combined Jewish religious tradition with elements of Greek culture. Until the early Muslim conquests of the Eastern Mediterranean, the main centers of Hellenistic Judaism were Alexandria in Egypt and Antioch in Syria, now in southern Turkey, the two main Greek urban settlements of the Middle East and North Africa region, both founded at the end of the 4th century BCE, in the wake of the conquest of Alexander the Great.
Alexander the Great. Let's read about him real quick. Go to 1 Maccabees 1:1.
The book of 1 Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 1. And it happened after that Alexander, son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Shittim, had smitten Darius, king of the Persians and Medes, that he reigned in his stead, the first over Greece.
The first over Greece. This is why people hate us, because we can show you worldly history is in the Bible. Alexander the Great or the Greek, he's in the Bible. And people like to say that the Apocrypha is not canon. Meanwhile, every history book has Alexander the Greek in it. It has the Maccabees. It has all that history. But it ain't canon. Okay. Read verse 7.
Verse 7. So Alexander reigned 12 years and then died.
Read.
And his servants bare rule, every one in his place.
Uh-huh.
And after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves. So did their sons after them many years. And evils were multiplied in the earth.
So when the white man came on the earth, evils multiplied. That's why Babylon is the worst captivity ever, because now he's at his strength now. It's the same thing as it was before in Rome and Greece. Remember they said all roads lead to Rome. That's like America. If you want to go, if you want to find, America's the only place where it says we got a capital called Sin City.
Right.
And it's glorified for the whole world. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Right.
So.
Hey, Cap, I want you, can we pull that back up, that definition? Pull that back up right quick. Scroll back up. Yeah, read it again.
Hellenistic Judaism was a form.
Hellenistic Judaism. I want you to pay attention to the wording here. Go ahead.
Was a form of Judaism.
Okay, hold on. It says was a form of Judaism. Okay, a type of Judaism. Go ahead.
In classical antiquity that combined Jewish religious tradition with elements of Greek culture.
So it says it combined, right? Combined Jewish religious tradition with elements of Greek culture. All right. Now I want you to get 2 Maccabees 14 and 38. We saw this also when we're going to go to the split, but when Northern Kingdom was carried into the lands of the Assyrians. We'll revisit that same thought. But read that.
2 Maccabees chapter 14, verse 38. For in the former times, when they mingled not themselves with the Gentiles.
So when we had nothing to do with the Gentiles, go ahead.
He had been accused of Judaism.
Wait a minute. I'm confused now. I'm confused. So we didn't have anything to do with the Gentiles. That was our religion. Right? Not to mingle with them. But it said Hellenistic Judaism is when we do mingle with them and take certain elements of their culture. Read, go ahead and finish that.
For in the former times, when they mingled not themselves with the Gentiles, he had been accused of Judaism and did boldly jeopard his body and life with all vehemency for the religion of the Jews.
You see that? Okay. All right. That's all I wanted.
Heavy precept. So, go back to the definition. I want to keep reading down on that. Because what I'm showing y'all right now is how we became Gentiles, how you had Israelite Gentiles in the New Testament. Because who can tell me, when did we go back? We understand that we were taken to Assyria. We were taken to Babylon. So when did we return back to the land? Soldier Eleazar. And I want a precept.
Yes, sir. You can read it in the 2nd Ezra 13 and 40. That was done under Cyrus, the king of Persia.
Correct. I'm going to give you an easy one, though. Go to Ezra.
Oh, yeah, yes, sir.
You good. You deep.
No.
Go to Ezra 1 and 5. So we learned things in Babylon. We learned things in Assyria. But we were able to return to the land during the time of the Persians and Medes. And then when we were back in the land, Greece came. And they put us back into hard bondage. Read that.
The book of Ezra, chapter 1, verse 5.
Mm-hmm.
Then rose up the chief of the fathers of Judah and Benjamin, and the priests and the Levites, with all them whose spirit God had raised, to go up to build the house of the Lord, which is in Jerusalem.
To go up to rebuild the house of the Lord. So it's a lot of history. I'm all over the place tonight because I'm trying to get it quick. But Babylon burned down Jerusalem. They burned it. They burned down the temple. So we had to go back and rebuild the temple. And this is when we went back into the land. And we got our traditions. We got our culture back. But now we're reading about how we were Hellenized again. And we lost our culture. Pull it back up. The definition. All right. Where were we at?
Further down.
Yeah, Alexander Greek. Yep, start there. Hellenistic Judaism.
Hellenistic Judaism also existed in Jerusalem during the Second Temple period.
Now, why is it called the Second Temple? Because the first temple was destroyed when? During the Babylonian captivity, which we'll go over. Nebuchadnezzar came and they burned the temple down. Read.
Where there was conflict between Hellenizers and traditionalists.
Those that kept the commandments and those that didn't want to keep the commandments. Just like today, they would say there's a conflict between the Christian church and the black Hebrew Israelites. Go ahead.
The major literary product of the contact of Second Temple Judaism and Hellenistic culture is the Septuagint translation of the Hebrew Bible from biblical Hebrew and biblical Aramaic.
Scroll down. Scroll down. Read that. The decline.
The decline of Hellenistic Judaism started in the 2nd century, and its causes are still not fully understood. It may be that it was eventually marginalized by, partially absorbed into, or progressively became the coin-speaking core of early
Christianity.
Early Christianity centered on Antioch and its traditions, such as the Melkite Greek Catholic Church and the Greek Orthodox Church of Antioch.
This is what Christ was speaking about in Matthew 24. It didn't become a battle anymore because everybody just didn't keep the commandments no more. So there wasn't a fight of whether or not we had to do this or do that. Everybody was on one accord. The Catholic Church, which we went over yesterday. The Universal Church, which they agreed to make everybody happy. Pull it back up. Scroll down. Is this it? This is the Hellenized? All right, read that. The conquest.
The conquest of Alexander in the late 4th century BCE spread Greek culture and colonization.
Spread Greek culture and what?
And colonization.
Colonization. They just say that word like there's nothing wrong. What do y'all think of when y'all hear of colonization? Slavery. That's what happened to us. When you're colonized, you take on the culture of your oppressors. But they just write it up there like it's not. Click on the word colonization. They ain't got no definition. Okay, yeah, read that. There you go. Perfect.
Colonization is a process of establishing foreign control.
Foreign control, read.
Over target territories or peoples for the purpose of cultivation, often by establishing colonies and possibly by settling them.
So, it says people for the purpose of cultivation. Now, how do you determine if somebody wants to be cultivated or not? How you take a whole nation of people and you determine how you want to use them and how they are to be utilized? That's the white people terms. Colonization, read that.
Colonization is sometimes used synonymously with settling, as with colonization in biology. But while colonization historically involves settling, colonization through settling is the particular form called settler colonialism. Colonization is, in this case, structured and enforced by the settlers directly, while their or their ancestors' metropolitan country maintains linkage or control through the settlers' colonialism. Settler colonialization either rules as a minority group through oppression.
Through what?
Through oppression.
Through oppression, read.
And assimilation.
And assimilation, read.
The indigenous peoples.
That's the key part I wanted. We became what? Gentiles. Through oppression and assimilation. That's what you have to understand. And that time period is known as hellenization. Y'all follow along?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, let's go back to the Bible.
You getting second?
Go ahead. We're going to go.
That assimilation. Let's deal with that right quick. Get it, 2 Maccabees 4. 2 Maccabees 4, 13.
2 Maccabees chapter 4, verse 13. Now such was the height of Greek fashions and an increase of heathenish manners.
Increase of heathenish manners. Now remember earlier we read this is pollution. All right, to make it plain. Go ahead.
Through the exceeding profaneness of Jason, that ungodly wretch, and no high priest, that the priest had no courage to serve any more at the altar.
And look at today. Look at today. We've just seen two events where our brothers have been done brutally wrong, and there is no courage in the black church leadership to speak out against it. Read it again.
That the priest had no courage to serve anymore at the altar.
Why? Because they've been assimilated. Okay, go ahead.
But despising the temple and neglecting the sacrifices, hastened to be partakers of the unlawful allowance in the place of exercise. After the game of discus called them forth.
Verse 15.
Not setting by the honors of their fathers.
Now, we read it in 2 Maccabees 14:38. The honors of our fathers is this Bible. And this Bible teaches us to gather ourselves together and to keep God's commandments in the faith of Christ. Read on.
Not setting by the honors of their fathers, but liking the glory of the Grecians best of all.
Hellenization. Hellenization.
All right, y'all. I told y'all we going to keep it to an hour. I told you we weren't going to get to the split. So, next week, we're going to pick up. So, just to give you, we're going to pick up, we're going to go into the split in detail next week. We'll focus the whole class on that. But from this today, you should be able to defend yourself against a Christian. Y'all all right?
Yes, sir.
All right, cool. Like I said, hey, it's going to be an hour every week. We're going to be in and out. Y'all can come get the scripts, and then we'll be out. Any questions? I'll open it up for questions. Sisters, if y'all got questions, write it down. We'll answer your questions. Brothers, any questions?
Somebody come up and get some cards.
Brothers, any questions? No questions?
Man, it's gotta be.
All right. Nah, it's cool if we ain't got no questions. Make sure you bring them next week. So before we go to next week, read 1 Kings 11 and 12. Read 1 Kings chapter 11 and 12. That's going to be the key part of what we're going to hit on. Next week, we're going to go into the split. And then we're going to tie it into what happened. We're going to go to Romans 11. So we're going to touch this Gentiles and make sure we're good on the Gentiles. Because once you understand that, the Bible is cake. Well, minus the deep prophecy, but you make the New Testament a lot easier. All right. Anybody online got questions? See, that's why I don't like the YouTube. Are they on the Zoom? Because I can't take questions.
No, they're not on the Zoom. I'm asking them though.
Okay.
I'm asking them.
See if they got any questions. Yes, sir. That's Colossians 1, verse 26 and 27. You got one? You got no card? All right. Yes. All right. So the 7 major captivities is Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Persian Medes, and the reason why we say Persian Mede because it was a split kingdom. Greece, Rome, and America. Those are the 7 major captivities. Yes, absolutely. So she said in 2 Maccabees 14:13 was Judaism referring to the laws of God. Yes. Go to 1 Maccabees 2. So real Judaism is the keeping of the commandments. That's our religion. Remember, they called them Judaizers, which that might be a class we got to go into too. 1 Maccabees 2, let's start at verse 19. Religion is not a bad word. Religion means religio, which means to hold back or to restrain. All right? That's what the commandments do for us. You got that?
Yes, sir.
Read that.
1 Maccabees chapter 2, verse 19.
This is what Judaism is, real Judaism.
Then Mattathias answered and spake with a loud voice, though all the nations that are under the king's dominion obey him, and fall away every one from the religion of their fathers.
They fall away what?
From the religion of their fathers.
The religion of their fathers. Read.
And give consent to his commandments. Yet will I and my sons and my brethren walk in the covenant of our fathers. God forbid that we should forsake the law and the ordinances. We will not hearken to the king's word.
We will what?
We will not hearken to the king's words. To go from our religion.
To go from what?
To go from our religion.
Our religion, which is also known as Judaism. Read.
Either on the right hand or the left.
But all it is the keeping of the commandments. Go to 2 Maccabees chapter 2 and verse 21. 2 Maccabees chapter 2 and verse 21.
2 Maccabees chapter 2 verse 21. And the manifest signs that came from heaven unto those that behave themselves manfully, to their honor for Judaism.
To their honor for what?
To their honor for Judaism.
They honored Judaism is going to their honor for the commandments of God. That they said they would not go from the right hand or to the left from the commandments. Read.
So that being but a few, they overcame the whole country and chased barbarous multitudes.
So because they stood up for the commandments of God, God defended them. That's what true Judaism is. Matter of fact, let's see what the definition is. Pull that definition up, the worldly definition. Let's see what it says.
And online, if you got any questions, go to the telegrams and type them in there.
Y'all found it? All right, Judaism.
Judaism, a religion developed among the ancient Hebrews and characterized by belief in one transcendent God who has revealed himself to Abraham, Moses, and the Hebrew prophets, and by a religious life in accordance with scriptures and rabbinic traditions. The cultural, social, and religious beliefs and practices of the Jews.
Read. This is the key part.
Conformity to Jewish rites.
To Jewish rites.
Ceremonies.
Ceremonies.
And practices.
Which is what? The laws, statutes, and commandments. But they call it Judaism today because they don't keep the law, statutes, and commandments. They have their own traditions and cultures. That's why they don't even use the Bible. They use the Talmud. The whole body of Jews, the Jewish people. So
curly Q's and dangerous.
Right. All right. So we'll end it there tonight. We'll be back.
What is the nation? Nation is men leading by example. Nation is family. Nation is community. Nation is children with role models. Nation is unity. Nation is you. And finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord. His word